think it's time to get started. So, hello everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. This is the second technical webinar that we have organized, and today's topic is the Touchpoint integrations, and it will be given by Philip Amaku. I hope I said that correct, Philip Amaku. But I've been practicing for a few minutes here to say his name correctly. He's one of our senior developers for the Touchpoint team. And he will do today's presentation, but most importantly, also the demo about the whole integrations. So the content will be quite technical. It will give an overview of the capabilities of the Touchpoint integrations and the gadgets that you can build with Touchpoint. And although it is quite technical and it will go into some code and some details, even a lot of it will go over my head. But also for non-technical people, don't be scared by it. It will give you a very good overview and a better understanding what the capabilities are of Touchpoint and the flexibility that the framework offers us to extend it and expand it with new gadgets and with integrations into other applications. So even not understanding all the things that Philip will do, it will give you a very good understanding how people that are more technical and that can do the coding and understand it, how they can work with this framework to do these integrations. So for the webinar itself, we will keep everybody muted during the webinar as usual. We will also be recording the webinar and the link will be available afterwards. But if you have any questions during the webinar specifically, put them into the chat box and then I will put them to Philip. At the end of the session, we will also open up for general questions and direct questions, etc., for discussion with Philip. So that will be there as well. So with that said, I will now hand over to Philip. And Philip, up to you to provide us with all the information that you want to give us.
Okay, thank you, Jürgen. Like Jürgen said, I'm one of the senior developers for Touchpoint applications. So this webinar, I will just give an overview of the gadget functionality that we can actually apply to Touchpoint in order to enhance the actual application for whatever your customers' needs are. Start for the agenda. We're just going to have a brief introduction to the documentation that's actually available for integrations. And then we're going to go straight into the types of gadgets that you can actually develop for Touchpoint. And we'll have a look at the example gadgets that are provided in the Touchpoint installation at the moment, and then we'll expand on that with some gadgets that I've developed specifically for this webinar to showcase some of the functionality that you can actually achieve with the gadget integrations. And lastly, we'll talk about AngularJS directive customizations, which are essentially replacing bits of the core Touchpoint code with your own customized version of it to do specific functionality for particular situations. I have to warn you that there is quite a lot of content in this webinar, so I will be going quite quickly to cover it, but anything that you don't get hold of straight away, you can ask me about at the end of this webinar. So two main sources of reference for the integrations development. The first is the Ajax API, which describes the interface used by any agent application, of which Touchpoint is just one, to access the agent web services on the CCSP server. The agent web services provide the access of the agent and call objects in the system. So what we've done, we've generated online documentation for these classes and all the events that can be raised and consumed by the agent applications. This is installed as part of the Touchpoint application in this location under the CCSP server, but it's also available in Confluence at this location as a zip file. And then we have the Touchpoint integrations guide itself, which describes the Touchpoint services and user interface events and commands that can be raised and transmitted to Touchpoint to allow you to do your own gadget development. And there's quite a comprehensive guide on developing gadgets and it goes through the example gadgets that have been added to the installation step by step in order to provide a reference point for developing your own ones. There's also a section on there on migrating legacy web agent 6.1x integrations, and a section on how to develop your own co-browsing integrations where you're using a third-party co-browsing application with Touchpoint. Again, this guide is available in Confluence at this location. This is a PDF file. As I said, the main focus of this webinar is development of Touchpoint gadgets. And a gadget can be described as a piece of functionality in Touchpoint that can be either added, removed, or customized in order to build a bespoke GUI for your particular application. And that functionality can be customized at tenant or group or role level within the system. We have three types of gadgets in Touchpoint. The system gadgets are the ones that are actually supplied with the application and provide the default functionality. In order to customize any gadget, we use the CCSP admin point application. This is basically the configuration application with Touchpoint. So it's essentially a portal into the configuration database specifically for Touchpoint application properties. So when you log on, you'll be presented with this screen where you've got access to the various tenants within the system. And then you can go to the gadgetry, which contains a list of all the gadgets that are available at that particular level. So I'm logged in as an administrator, the landlord administrator, excuse me. And you see here, these are the system gadgets, the ones that are actually supplied with Touchpoint for installation. So for example, in the outgoing call gadget, these are the properties that you're able to edit on the actual gadget, and you can add properties as well, which can be accessed by specific code that you introduce to Touchpoint application. You have limited customization of those properties using admin point, but you're also able to customize the actual code directly using code, and we'll look at that later on in the webinar. The customizations that you want to introduce into Touchpoint, you would do so via the standard gadget. Now, it's just any custom window that you write can host simple HTML or an actual web application. The main criteria for being able to host an application or website in a standard gadget is that it must be able to be hosted in an iframe. If you wanted to put in a piece of HTML which has a source URL of the BBC website, for example, that wouldn't work because the BBC website cannot be hosted in an iframe. These windows, they can be tabbed, floated, or opened as a separate window completely, and they're accessible from the gadgetry in the UI. In admin point, we have a couple of examples of those standard gadgets with Demo CRM. When you create a gadget, a standard gadget, you get all these options to configure how it looks in the actual Touchpoint, whether it can pop out, whether it can float, if it's a supervised gadget, etc. And it can define default parameters or default values for the parameters, such as the floating position, size, the default tab state, what is it, tab or float, how many instances, and you specify the actual location of the HTML file that defines that gadget. This is all documented in the admin point user guide and also in the integrations guide. And then the third category is the functional gadget, which is a JavaScript file that defines functionality that you want to add to the CCSP Touchpoint application. It's a very powerful tool because it can do pretty much anything that you want in the background. You can access other applications, you can open other gadgets, you can intercept messages, intercept events, can really tailor the functionality of Touchpoint as you want. You see that in admin point. Let's wait for it to log on again. Whilst that's logging on, we'll look at the examples that are actually supplied with Touchpoint. So we've already seen the entry for the demo CRM gadget, and this is the reference gadget that should be used as the first point of call for developing your own standard gadgets. We'll have a look at some of the functionality that it presents later on, but it's developed in the integrations guide from first principles, and this builds on the functionality as you go through the guide, so it gives quite a comprehensive overview of all the capabilities that you can actually introduce using a standard gadget, such as listening to events, raising your own events, etc. Then we have a demo chat prompt set of gadgets that comprises both standard and functional gadgets. These answer chat calls, send chat messages, and give you an overview of how a functional gadget can actually interact with standard gadgets and vice versa. A custom email standard gadget, just something to show the answering, creation and sending of emails and email core parts such as reply and forward. And then we'll call it a simple gadget, which is a very basic display of the properties that you can change on the gadget. So we'll have a look at how you can actually change the appearance of the gadget and manipulate the gadget's windows, etc. All these gadgets are provided as part of the Touchpoint installation in this location, and we have walkthroughs for all of them in the integrations guide. To use them, you just add them to your particular customization using the admin point. So what I want to do now is just to look at an initial gadget, just by showing first principles. So I want to say that the very basic gadget you can have is just an HTML page. That's exactly what I mean here. So we've got an HTML file here with just some heading in it, and we're going to be showing that in our Touchpoint. So log on to Touchpoint here. See if that point's loaded yet. Yeah. So in our gadgetry, I've defined this gadget here, a standard gadget, demo CRM level 1. The only thing I've changed really in here is just to specify the HTML file that defines that gadget, which is this one here. And in Touchpoint, it appears as an icon in the gadgetry. Open it up, and there's our standard gadget. As simple as you can get really for a standard gadget. If we want to go on to the next level, where we're actually introducing some functionality and making use of the services that Touchpoint provides, we have this file here, and this is where we start to introduce some AngularJS concepts. Now, I'm not going to go into AngularJS because that's a whole different subject. It's relatively simple to pick up, but it does have its own learning curve. But for this webinar, all you need to know is that we've declared an application here that's just specific to this particular HTML file. We're including some scripts that are required, such as jQuery, Angular.js itself, and these are some scripts that are provided as part of the Touchpoint application, purely for helping with the gadget initialization. We've also got access to the agent.js file here, which describes the agent object, which is part of the AJAX API. And then here, this is our business logic for this particular gadget, having this JavaScript file. We have a controller for the body, and then we just defined a label, which we're going to use for the agent state, and a button, which we're going to use to toggle that agent state. If we look at the controller logic here, these first 4 lines essentially set up the access to the Angular application that is Touchpoint. So we're getting the root, which provides us with all the Touchpoint window itself. This is our demo app that we've declared the HTML. Then here we're declaring which services we want to use from our main application in our little gadget. So we want to use a logger service, which just writes to the console or writes to the file if we had client reporting services enabled. That would enable us to write output to the file, log file. Event service wrapper, which provides access to the events that are raised in Touchpoint, so we can subscribe to and publish events using that. This agent service wrapper, which provides access to the agent object. So we inject those services, and then our controller, which we declared for our body, is where we actually do the business logic. So first off, we're using logger service to write some output to the console or to the file. And then we're using the agent object to get its state, and we're setting our label to that particular value. And then we're subscribing to the agent state change event that's raised by the agent web services on the CCSP server. Once we get that state, we're going to update the label to that new state value. And here's the callback for our button, where we're going to check what the current state is, and then just set the state to the opposite of that. And here we're actually using the API functions of the agent object, go released and go available. So if we open that gadget up here, see it's pretty much the same as the other one. However, we've got our label here, which is showing the current agent state. I've just activated the toggle agent the toggle agent button. We've received the event and we've updated the label. And that is pretty much the basics of event subscription in Touchpoint. So demo CRM, which contains quite a lot of functionality, this demonstrates access with Touchpoint, multiple Angular services and API objects in Touchpoint. So accesses the call object, uses other functions of the agent object, etc. It shows the subscription, publishing events, call handling, answering calls, putting calls on hold, and also enables you to transfer calls using both the auto and attended method. I'll just quickly present that here. Again, this is part of the installed example, so I'm not going to go into it too much, but just want to show some capability. So I've now made a call. Let's call my phone on my desk. I can hold a call and we can hang out. And that's all functionality that's been introduced using this gadget. Demo chat prompt func, just going to show the first principles of that. It's a functional gadget, so there's no UI for it. All you do is you declare a function in JavaScript code, and this will get run when the agent logs in. Here we get in the application, the root application again, and instead of a controller function, we have to use this injector that belongs to the Angular application that's part of the root window. Once you've got that injector, we can then get any service that we require just by its name. And the only thing we're getting here is the logger service, because all we want to do is just write some output to the console. So now, if we go back to Touchpoint, so logging in as another agent. And once you look at the console, use DevTools by pressing F12. That works in any browser. And what we're looking for here is this output. And that shows that our functional gadget has been loaded and it's been executed. Again, there's a whole lot of different functionality you can do with this. The full demo chat prompt functionality or present code, there's quite a lot to it. But I'll just go over what it actually does. So this is actually not doing an auto variable or article automatically. It's not giving the chat greeting. This is all coming from the gadget itself. If we look at the gadgets in admin point, this is a functional gadget. You define a script URL, which points to the file, and then these are properties that I've added to the gadget itself. So this question is the question that's presented here. And then depending on what the response is, we're going to present one of these prompts. We're also going to do an action. So in my chat as the customer, I'm going to type in yes. What's happened now is that the gadget has detected the answer yes, and it's opened this new window with a new HTML file, and it's passed the caller name from the chat object and the received answer to that particular window. So this could be any application, and doesn't need to be passed as a query parameter. It could be passed as part of the request header. So it's just one way which the background logic that's been introduced by a functional gadget can be used to tie in with other applications. The full demo chat prompts actually makes use of these gadget properties, and it also, like I said, inserts and sends chat messages. When used with the other application, the other gadgets within that family of examples, will also open automatically another gadget and interact with that. That's all described in the actual integrations guide. Simple gadgets. It's just a demonstration, really, of ways in which you can manipulate the gadget appearance in the gadget tree. So all these properties that we see here in admin point, they're actually represented in the gadget itself. So we just list them all here, their current values, and in the gadget code, the logic behind it, we can actually manipulate the appearance of the gadget within the gadgetry itself. So changing the title, update the notifications as displayed with the gadgets, etc. The thing about the simple gadget is that it has no AngularJS code in it at all. It's just an HTML file with pure JavaScript in it. But it just shows you how you can actually access the properties that you defined in the admin point within the gadget code itself. Now we're going to move away from the examples that are already installed with Touchpoint and just have a look at some things that you can do with functional gadgets in order to customize the application. An example I've gone for here is changing the UI appearance, because this was a question raised in a previous webinar as to how to change the background of Touchpoint based on whether or not the logged in agent was an agent or a supervisor. So just taking that idea on, we're going to show how you can actually achieve that and more. And then we'll talk about directive customization using the chat window as an example. So I've got my demo tenant set up with a few groups, levels 1 to 5. So within each level, I'm going to introduce some functionality, and the functionality will increase with the level. So first up, to answer the original question that was raised, we want to set a different background using the gadget depending on whether or not the logged in user is an agent or supervisor. So if we have a look at the code first. Okay, so it's a functional gadget code, getting the application, the root application, the injector, and the service we want is the agent service wrapper that gives us access to the agent. We find out what the actual background element is, but the background DOM element, and we just make sure we've got access to that. And then we're using this property of the agent to determine whether or not we want to change background color to this pale violet red, or royal blue. So we log in as a level 1 agent. And you see we have a nice blue background. Log in as a level 1 supervisor. We have this nice red background. So that's all done using this functional gadget that is part of this group's customization, just to set the background color based on information we receive from the Ajax API. At the moment, that's hard coded. So the next step is to use properties that we defined in the admin point to decide which colors to actually use. So we've added a couple of properties to the functional gadget, these 2 background colors. Now here, instead of just using the default values, we're going to look for the gadget's functional gadget's properties. It's identified by the name of the gadget with no space. and then we're just going to set the backgrounds based on those property values. Everything else in the code is exactly the same, apart from the fact that we're using these variables now. So now if we log on to level 2 supervisor, we got a different color. But in this case, in order to change color, we don't change the code, we just change the property in admin point. So the same gadget can be used for different groups and give different colors. So change the background based on the actual agent's nature, supervisor or not. Now I want to change it another aspect of the UI based on an event. So next level up, we're looking at the gadgetry color, whether it's available or leased. A bit more functionality still. We're now looking at this, sorry, just jumped ahead a bit, this release gadgetry color and available gadgetry color. And we want to listen to an event, so we need to get hold of the event service wrapper. We get hold of the actual DOM element for the gadgetry, and now we've introduced this function here on state change. That's going to be used as a callback for the agent state change event subscription. If the state is available, we use one color. If it's not, we use the other color. So now at level 3, because we use the initial value of the agent state, we've already set the released color of the gadgetry. We change the state, we detect the agent state change to available, the gadgetry color updates. Just need to log on to the level 3 supervisor. We'll use that later. Again, different background color because you can specify different property value, but still the same behavior with the gadgetry. Now say we want to change the CSS entirely, and we can do this because we now have the custom CSS service. So here, so just introduce these properties here for the actual CSS. That's Britannia.css and St. Patrick's. So in the code, declare these variables, still got the agent service wrapper, but now we get in the CSS service, and this is the service that's actually used by Touchpoint in order to load the custom.css file or look and feel.css file that's you can use in order to customize the entire look and feel of the already Touchpoint application. This was introduced in the CSS customization webinar before. So now, if it's a supervisor, we're going to use this particular value. Else we're going to use the agent CSS. And then all we're doing is just using the function of the custom CSS service to load the new styles in. This root path here is just the prefix to the path, would be Touchpoint for most parts. So now if we log on to level 4, This is based on the Irish flag. It's a bit in your face, but just going to show they can change the theme quite drastically. And because we're using the gadget to load it, we can change it on a per gadget, on a per user basis. Oops. And of course, you can combine functional gadgets. So the last level is where we're using the CSS loading and the change of the gadgetry color based on the actual availability of the agent. So nothing's changed in the code. You're just combining the functionality of the two. Got a different background as per, just to change the actual background to differentiate from the other one. And for the agent, we're actually using St. Patrick's one now. And different gadgetry colors. So that's just sort of overview and quick presentation really of how to use functional gadgets to manipulate one aspect of the application, in this instance the UI. Of course they can be used for doing lots of other stuff, and it's really down to what your requirements are that limits what you want, what the functional gadget can do. And this topic is something that probably hasn't been explained too much before, so I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this. It's directive customization. And what I mean by directives is the fact that any UI component in Touchpoint that you see is a directive. For example, the outgoing call is a gadget, but it's a gadget that's controlled by a directive in the code. And that directive contains its own set of directives, one for each tab. So the recent calls tab is a separate directive. And what a directive actually is defined as is a template HTML file that defines the presentation of the directive. So the buttons, the labels, etc. Those will be defined in the HTML file, and then the business logic is defined in a JavaScript file that's written in Angular, essentially. So where we saw in our demo CRM, simple demo CRM code, that's a directive which had a template HTML file, and you have the associated controller in the JavaScript file, which then has access to all the Touchpoint Angular services, events, and the Ajax API. The thing with the directive is that can be replaced by a customized version without actually changing the core Touchpoint code. So if you want to change the way that the outgoing call looks and behaves, you can actually replace that whole directive with a file, with files of your own that contain specific HTML and specific business logic, and that will be merged with the Touchpoint application without actually affecting what's already there. This makes it quite easy to actually change the core functionality of the Touchpoint application without actually changing the core code itself. The way you do that is to write as a functional gadget, and that enables the directive customizations to be enabled and disabled via admin point. Because if you want to enable a gadget or disable it, an admin point, say I wanted to disable the UI updater, just tick that, save it, and that now doesn't come up or is not loaded when you log in as a level 1 group member. The caveat with that is that if the original directive changes and that changes affects the way that the information that the directive has access to, or in some way affects how the customized version will behave, then those changes need to be merged with your customized version. So there is a change control aspect that needs to be adhered to in order for the customized version to not break when updates are received for Touchpoint. Now, the customization we're going to look at is the customization of the chat window, where we're going to customize 2 sections of it, using all the 3 things that you can actually customize. So it's the HTML, the CSS, and introduction of business logic. Our chat window is a little different to the other gadgets in that we've actually split it up into different parts. So this was in response to a request from PS. So we have these 4 sections of the chat window. We're going to modify the chat messages and chat top part. Other directives, such as the outgoing call and the callback window, they don't have this breakdown of individual sections, so they're a little less flexible to customize. So we've got our chat level 1 functional gadget, which has a chat CSS file associated with it. We load that up, Touchpoint, go all the way back here. Yeah. Hopefully this is the only one that's available. Just check. Right. So the code for this here, again, we're getting access to the agent service wrapper and the custom CSS service. Now, what we've done here is to customize the chat messages directive. This is explained in a bit more detail in the integrations guide. So for the time being, all we need to know is that we've declared our own version of chat messages directive with its own HTML file. This HTML file, this looks quite similar to the default version, but we've just changed around the presentation of the username of who's speaking a bit, and introduce a couple of CSS classes as well. This is the controller function, this is the business logic, and for this particular directive, we don't have any business logic. This is all about the presentation change. So I'm going to put in a chat call here. And this is a change that we've introduced. So what a chat call normally looks like. Let's go back. So you have the name as part of the actual message speech bubble. What we've done for this customization is that we've taken it out of the speech bubble and just put a little circle around it just giving it a bit more presentation. So we modify the HTML to change how the actual messages are structured, not just how they look, which we could do with normal CSS, but how the message is actually structured. So once you start doing that, then you can start to introduce other elements such as additional fields within the within each message line, moving stuff around, etc. And that's all done using the functional gadget. Want to take it to the next level, and we'll go straight to sort of level 3. This is our level 3 agent. We'll customize it, the top part. So we still got our chat level 1 customization in the group, but we're introducing a new functional gadget as well. What this will do, this introduces a couple of lines into the HTML. This is the HTML that comes from Touchpoint, apart from these 2 lines here, where we've introduced another button called Chat Assistance and another one called Dial Supervisor. The code, this new directive has got a few more parameters in it that we can make use of. We're accessing the HTML file that we specified, or we specified this as the HTML file that acts as a template, and we're injecting these services. So first we're going to wrap our event service wrapper in this subscriber base object. It's documented in the integrations guide, but essentially it allows for cleaner manipulation of these subscriptions. Add a subscription to assist status change, which tells us whether or not the agent is being assisted, and subscribing to a new message, which is the assist message that's being received from the supervisor. So actually what we're going to do here, skip this for the time being. We're getting hold of the assist application, the application that enables the agent to get in touch with the supervisor for help. And our request assistance button will actually publish a new event, or this event, Open Assist app, and we're going to assign to the assist window or assist view model this message text, and we can supply information from the call object that is one of the parameters that's received by this particular controller. And then we're going to tell the assist view model to actually send the request, the assist request itself. So we've got the first stage of that. Oh, where's that come up? No. Yeah, that's the one. So this is the group with our modified top message, or top chat top part. So I see we have this new button here. Just put some input here. Okay, and we still got our original messages customization. Now when we click on this button, it opens up the Assist app. And our associated supervisor in this group gets the notification that they want assistance with this particular customer. Now for the second part of this functionality, once we've done the assist request, we're going to add a subscription for new message. And once we've got the message from the assistant supervisor, we know that supervisor's name. And so once we've got that supervisor's name, we can actually find out how to call that supervisor. In order to call anybody, another agent, you need the agent's global ID. And the way to get that is to send a refresh agent list request using the agent object. So in the callback for the new message, we've had a subscription for the transfer refreshed event that will be raised in response to our request. And that will actually assign the global ID to the assistant supervisor. So we send the refresh agent list command with the supervisor's name. We get an event in response to that command, and there should only be one object in there. We get the global ID and assign it to our assistant supervisor object. So now, once you've got that, and we want to actually dial the supervisor, we have all the information we need to use the dial service in order to call that supervisor. So we see all that. Supervisor assists. So the assist session has been established. We set our flag to true. And we send a message. We send the refresh agent list command. We get the event coming back. And we now have a global ID for that supervisor. So then we can add another button to the chat window, which is to actually dial the supervisor. We activate that, and we just call the supervisor directly without having to go through the outgoing call gadget. So that is a relatively quick introduction to gadgets and just an overview of what you can actually achieve with it. It's just really a taster. There's so much more you can do. It's just a question of going through documentation and try things out for yourself. Do you have the example gadgets there to get you started? And there is a lot of functionality in there that will help you to develop your own gadgets. Any questions?
Okay, thanks, Philip. There was one question here indeed. Is it possible to do a simple functional gadget to control the font size of the chats?
Yeah. Essentially, the font size is part of the CSS. So as we've shown, you can control the CSS of the Touchpoint, or certain elements of Touchpoint using functional gadgets. So long as you know which elements you want to change, then yes, you can change it.
So if I would ask you to write a functional gadget that shows me the chat text in a font that I can just, the size of the font I can input and the font type I can input into as a parameter, that should be quite simple to do.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Can we listen to key down up events through the same service objects as Touchpoint handles keyboard shortcuts? Another question, it's from Simon. Let me unmute Simon. Simon, you're unmuted if you want to ask or enlighten your question.
Yeah, hi. I was just wondering if we could somehow hook into keyboard events in the window, or if there was some kind of functionality to listen for those events through a service.
Yeah, at the moment, the way we handle the keyboard events for the system tray shortcuts, so I think it's Windows key and F3 to hang up a call or answer a call, something like that. We actually have a service that runs on the client machine called Client Tray app, and that actually does the listening to those keyboard shortcuts for us. And then it sends.
Actually, Philip, sorry, I just did the very similar thing the other day, so I can quickly answer that. It is very simple to do it even in Touchpoint and not the Client Tray app, which we are doing it there. You just subscribe to a browser event for key down, and you query for the key that was pressed, and you can do anything with this event. There are several examples in the Touchpoint code for doing such a thing.
Yeah, that's not so much sort of a Touchpoint integration thing. That's really just using JavaScript, normal JavaScript.
Yeah, but I was just thinking about orchestrating between different gadgets and if they were listening to same events and stuff like that. If you're trying to centralize that, but no.
No, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but I don't think we do we? We don't have a single.
We are not listening to any key press other than the one documented as the one listened by the Client Tray app. But I was trying to do that for listening to events in Internet Explorer. For example, Control-MP, Control-L-O are events that are handled by Internet Explorer, and I want to listen to these events. So I was fairly able to do it quickly as a functional gadget, just to listen to this browser event. And other than that, there shouldn't be any collision between other things because we are not listening to anything other than the Client Tray.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Got another question here from Makesh. Makesh, I will unmute you. You want to ask your question, Makesh?
Hi. In the Touchpoint, when this CRM appears, when the call ends, that window doesn't get closed automatically.
Sorry?
So the question is, if the CRM window is opened automatically at the beginning of a call, can you also close it automatically, or is the close manually always required? So is there an option to close a gadget automatically based on an event?
Yes. Yes. You have a function that closes gadget windows, and so long as you're listening to something like a call distracted or wrap-up event, then you can invoke that function in the callback for that particular event.
Okay. And the second question is, can you also set it that, for example, the CRM gadget only opens up when a voice call comes in, but not a chat call or an email call? So whether it's dependent on the media that's open.
Yes. What you do there is you actually check. Well, first off, you subscribe to a new call event. Then within that callback for the event subscription, you check what the actual type of the call is. And it will be one of VoIP, chat, email, etc. And then depending on what the type is, you perform the appropriate behavior.
Okay. Okay, we've got another question from Tosif, if I say that correctly. I'll unmute you, Tosif. You want to ask your question?
Hi. Hi, this is Tosif. Yeah, actually, I'm just facing some issues with the CRM Dynamics integration in the gadget. So when I'm configuring this and when I'm testing, the CRM Dynamics page is not loading. But it's opening, if I'm opening outside, it's opening properly. There is no issue. But when I'm opening this CRM inside this gadget, It's not loading.
Is that the demo CRM gadget?
Yeah.
Without
So it could
looking
be some security issue or some it's blocking some scripts execution in the iframe, or what could be the reason? Just advice on this.
Is this the CRM demo gadget or your own MS Dynamics integration?
Yeah, MS Dynamics online. This is online, huh?
Okay.
Yeah. CRM
So
Dynamics online.
could it be that Microsoft Dynamics doesn't allow it to be opened in iframe?
Yeah. So then how we will integrate in that case?
in that
Because
case,
customers wants to integrate their CRMs.
Yeah.
So what will be the solution for this?
Okay. I think we've got several solutions for this, and we would really need to get our PS, Vladimir Banker, the PS manager, involved, who has done several of these integrations. Different options are, we can, for example, put the call controls in MS Dynamics themselves, so we do that integration, or we work with the Touchpoint connector as well, that allows us capabilities to go underneath the Touchpoint client and then integrate to MS Dynamics, where MS Dynamics would run as a separate browser, but we could still link into that with the simulator. But now we're coming into a technical level that I'm not comfortable with. That's why I said you probably have to discuss that kind of integrations with our PS organization.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? Any more questions to ask? No? Okay. I see 1 second, David, you've got your hand up. I'll unmute you. David, did you want to say or ask another question?
Yeah. I'm interested about the directive customization, the last part of the webinar, and I have seen in my documents that there are not information about it. There are information about this customization in the last release of the documents.
yeah, there is something that's relatively has been documented only recently. There is a section in it, a very small section, I have to say, in the 724 integrations guide, the latest version.
Right. Yeah, I am now in the portal, and I am downloaded the new version of the document.
Yeah.
But we do need to put a warning in with the directives. Once you override the directive for part, like with the chat window, you do need to make sure that if any fixes are done in that directive by the system gadget, by our code, you're not automatically getting those fixes if you override it with your own directive. So you do need what Philip said, you do need then to make sure that you keep them a change management tool like that. Now, the directives that we did for the chat window was very specifically to allow our PS organization to build the mobile connector, the social connector, I should say, that integrates into Facebook Messenger, into Twitter, etc., and allows those connections to come into the CCSP platform as chat windows, as chats. So that was a specific request from our PS organization to do it, but it is generically available also with customers, but we do put a little warning on it, but it gives the flexibility. Yes, in principle, you can even take our system gadgets and override them with your own code, but the problem is, indeed, if we make any fixes to those, you will not get those. So you do need to be a bit careful what you do. That's why we much rather prefer people to use functional gadgets to add capabilities or standard gadgets than trying to change the code that we deliver in our system gadgets.
But just to add to Jürgen, this technique of overriding or customizing the gadget is much better than the alternatives that to override our code. So if you do need to modify one of the system gadget or system directive, doing it as directive customization is much safer than just replacing our JavaScript code. In both cases, you will need to merge changes, but doing that via directive override gives you the ability to turn on and off your customization very easily by keeping the source code of Touchpoint in place, which is very important.
Yeah, absolutely right.
But
Okay.
but one more time, and I end. The last version is the version 7.2.4, and I am searching about the custom compile command that I have seen in the slides, and I didn't find it. I don't know if there is another release that you have not uploaded to the partner portal yet with the most recent documentation.
Not that I know, Philip.
Where are you actually? Actually, what I'll do is I'll find it on here. 1 second. Where is it? Documentation? I can't remember now.
Documentation.
So integrations guide. Oh God. Right. Okay. Is it this section here? Modify system gadget functionality.
Modifying system page 50, I assume.
Yeah.
I have seen it, but I noticed that the command that you are programming is custom compile and not compile provider like in this page.
Yeah, it is actually a mistake. I only just noticed it myself, to be honest, because it was a change I had to make to the actual code. So
okay.
This is an update that we need to do to a correction that we need to do to the guide. As part of this webinar, there's a couple of things that I've noticed that need correcting the guide, and it will be updated as a result.
Okay. Then the version in the guide is not correct. The correct is custom compile.
Yeah. So what I've done, all the code that I've presented in this webinar, I'm actually attaching to the presentation and recording that's going to be distributed. So the code that you will get with the presentation is the working code, and the guide will be updated in due course.
Okay. I expecting the contents of the webinar. Yeah. Thanks.
Well done, David. You paid better attention than me because I wouldn't have missed that one. But it's good to see that people actually on the technical level have understood a lot more than I do. So very good. Also, just to remind people, our professional services do also organize workshops that can help you with building gadgets. They've got a workshop that is specifically a kind of a training workshop that goes through the whole process. And at the end of it, they also help you with build your first gadget. So that's also an option that if you want support with this, and some customers might need more support than other customers, depending on the level of technical expertise. But Vladimir Benko and his team are very, very good in this. So please involve them if you feel you get stuck. Okay. Any more questions, anyone? No? Okay, then I'll close the webinar now. Thanks very much, Philip, and also Michiel, about providing the webinar, and we will publish the recording of it on the partner portal. Thanks everybody for attending. Bye.